Well, I love it when you bring her to meetings because then we all just take turns.
Anytime. Real life.
Okay, you ready?
Ready. Call to order the Public Art Commission meeting, a special meeting. I'd like to first start by calling the roll. Commissioner Taylor.
Present.
And Commissioner Gordon.
Present.
Commissioner Zelka.
Present.
Commissioner Miyagi.
Here.
And Commissioner Silverstein.
Here.
Mr. McDowell's here. Any changes or adjustments? Actually, there was one. So we're not going to deal with the update on the Highway 101 bike and pedestrian bridge because there isn't one, so we'll wait on that one for next time. And I don't see anyone here for oral communications. And so we will now move to approval of the minutes from April 16th, our last meeting.
And I do have a brief comment because I noticed when I was reviewing the minutes in the packet that there is an error that we will need to correct.
Okay.
Under the approval of minutes, it does say that Commissioner Kavanaugh moved and Commissioner Kavanaugh was not in attendance. So clearly that is an error.
It was a phantom gesture.
It was, so we'll have to go back to the tape and identify who made that motion.
Okay.
But
so can we still move to approve these with a no?
you can approve them pending any changes that are requested.
Okay.
I have another correction
on
also.
there, right? You have both Kavanaugh, Kathleen, and myself.
Okay, so then the first one was probably an error, so that Vice Chair Miyagi moved and the Chair McDowell paid the second. So we'll just delete that first portion.
And then also, I have a correction. I was present and Dara was absent last month. Okay. At the top.
Oh! Good one. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We got some things jumbled. All right.
All right. Those.
I was working solo last month, so, you know,
Okay.
just making sure you're on your toes. I'm glad you're reading.
All right, let's get there. That was a test. Everyone's read closely. We have a motion to approve.
So moved.
A second. I second. All right. So we have a special item. I'd like to introduce our two newest members to the Public Art Commission and have each of you say a bit about yourselves. Mia Zelka and Lauren.
Hi everyone. I'm pleased to be joining all of you. I'm from Palo Alto originally and moved back here after starting my architecture career on the East Coast. I went to Rhode Island School of Design, so I have a BFA and a BArch, and just thrilled to be participating in this discussion, shaping public art in our community.
Hello everyone, I'm Lauren Gordon. I've been living in Palo Alto for about 14 years now, and I'm very excited to join this commission as well. My mom and my sister are artists actually, so I can really appreciate art, and I'm excited to help shape what's to come in the next few years in Palo Alto art, public art, so thanks.
All right, welcome.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you guys. We have one action item, which is an expansion of the scope of the master plan. And essentially we have it's one of these things where we anticipated some scope change. This is one of them. And the staff is requesting additional funds for $5,000. At least you want to go through what that's going to entail.
Sure, so I'd be happy to walk you through it.
And maybe just sort of recap saying, like, what's the total budget, like what percentage increases roughly, so people have a sense of the scale.
Absolutely, especially we've got a couple of newer commissioners joining us this evening. So the Public Art Master Plan is well underway. So the contract with Barbara Goldstein and Gail Goldman, as it stands now, they will be gathering their input through a single public forum and a series of outreach meetings. That was their original scope. They have begun this process with more than 25 individual and small group meetings. They've held an artist outreach meeting and the first meeting of the Public Art Advisory Committee. They will do further outreach meetings when they return in June. At the time that their contract was approved by the Public Art Commission, staff did clarify that the artist-led community engagement and the additional public forum would be an additional scope of work for their contract. The commission has earmarked the additional funds to commission an artist for the artist-led outreach, but has yet to approve the funds for the additional public forum and the additional work from the consultant to facilitate this process. The intent behind the public art or the artist-led community engagement is to gather input in a unique way from members of the community who are not likely to come to a public meeting. So it's about getting an artist out there, perhaps in the parks, perhaps on the transportation systems. It could be object related, it could be all social practice, but that they will be invited to integrate with the community over the course of the summer into the fall and gather some meaningful input. And also it's a really fun way to have temporary public art taking place throughout our city and get us that input from people who are not coming to City Hall for these meetings. So staff anticipates bringing the specific artist and proposal back to the Public Art Commission likely in our next meeting. Tonight staff is asking for $5,000 for the additional scope of work for the master planning contract with Barbara and Gail to add the artist-led engagement and the second public forum. And at this time, I don't know if Vice Chair Miyagi maybe wants to speak about that meeting of the advisory committee, because he is the chair of the Public Art Master Plan Advisory Committee. So I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. The advisory committee meeting was just outstanding. I thought the energy level, the comments that we had, and everybody contributed. We had some high school kids there, which was great because we need those, because we don't have the young people, and in 20 years all we work for is not going to be there. So that was great, and they really contributed a lot. And a real broad spectrum of the community was there. So I thought it was a really great meeting, and like Elise, I think I was energized when I left that meeting because there were so many great comments. And this extra meeting, and this additional meeting is really needed because we really need more community input into this. We want to get as much community buy-in as we can, and by having another meeting like this will help doing that. And I think it's a great idea to maybe have it on Caltrain or something like that, to really get, because Palo Alto during the week, over 60,000 people come into work. So you have all the Caltrain stations, you have Page Mill, Sand Hill, El Camino, and all these avenues where people are coming into work. So maybe to have something there would be great to get that input as well, because we want to have a broad input of the community with this public art master plan. The more input we have, the more buy-in we have, and I think it'll be just a super plan.
Are you talking about the artist-led outreach at Caltrain, or are you talking about the next public meeting or at Caltrain?
The artist-led outreach, that there are multiple different artists, and they might choose different ways to engage with the community. We leave that to them to come back to us with proposals, and then we will come back to the commission with the recommendation.
And they'll choose one artist, or are you going to choose multiple artists, or there's several?
At this time, we would be looking for one artist, one commission, that they would have an ongoing project that would span several months.
And maybe just to clarify, it's not like a visual artist is going to paint anything. It's where they're sort of talking to the community as an artist. Maybe give a little more color about some of the things that some of the folks have talked about doing.
So, for instance, I guess we could pull up the slide that Barbara used in her presentation. When she did her original presentation about their public art master planning process. So this is an image that was shown in her original proposal. She showed a couple of examples, one of which was an artist, John Rubin, who then outfitted this truck. Let's see. See, it's a glass truck, so it became like this talk show. So it traveled around the city and he interviewed people, and in the course of that was able to gather some really impactful information that really helped inform their public art master plan and bring visibility to it, because of course people see a truck like that and think, wow, what is that? So public art can be fun and, you know, be different than how most people imagine it. So the artist-led engagement really sort of is a twofold project, but one of their deliverables is that they are to gather some sort of targeted input from the community that will be useful in the public art master plan. And then the other example to the right was this project called Trappings, in which members of the community are asked what do they wear when they feel they're strongest, right? And so they're getting at some other aspect of the community. So it's not a direct asking, you know, how do you do a mural or where would you like to have a mural? It's really finding out what's special about this community, how do you navigate through the community, and that kind of input can really help determine sites for public art, types of public art, and really what's on people's minds and what's special about Palo Alto, so that we can target, you know, the future public art projects to dovetail with that input and those priorities. So that's more what we're thinking.
So the question I'm been contemplating is, do you anticipate that they're going to be asking for more money in the future?
Not unless you decide you want to do a second commission of artist-led engagement or something like that. When the proposal came forward, there was some discussion at the time on the commission about, you know, really wanting to see that second meeting and wanting to have the artist-led engagement, but under the existing contract for $50,000, it was not feasible. So they did say at that time it would be an additional scope, and staff said that we would come back to the commission with that additional scope.
All right, any other questions? All right, do we have a motion to approve the extension or the additional funds?
I approve the extension of additional funds.
I'll second that.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved. Okay. So our next item is a non-action item, and it's to discuss, it's a new prep really for the session that we're doing next week with City Council. And for Dara and Nia, maybe I don't know if this is something possible to send out a link. Because you mentioned quickly where it is, but there's a video from last year's. If you weren't, were either of you guys there? Okay, I wasn't either. All right, so I think it was before the new guys, us three of us joined. There's a video online that has the last one, and if you want to see how it went, this will give you a sense of how last year's went. Of course, this one will be much better, but
It's better every year.
It gets better every year. And so, thank you for putting together, the staff's put together a presentation to give us a structure to walk things through. And the thought is to walk things through here and also to kind of divvy up the areas that each of us are going to talk through. So each of us can pick an area that's of interest to him or her and be expected to kind of lead through that discussion in the session with council. All right. And so the notes field here is kind of like, okay, if we're interested in something, and we can just sort of decide here, like, hey, if someone's really excited about something. Amanda is, the one thing I would say is that Amanda is most familiar with the, where is it in here?
It's for the end.
Yeah. We're thinking that she would do the last two pieces on the conversation that Susan Ardui is doing for City Hall, and then the University Avenue tunnels. She's most familiar with that project. But I think everything else is fair game, so.
Now, we do have a couple of continuation items from last year. The percent for art by private development and the public art master plan. And those two, I think we need to expand on more than, because last year it was more of a informational type thing. Now that we're really into it, and I know that the mayor has asked for, and staff has, or not, excuse me, city council has asked for an update on the percent for private art projects that have come forward. So that's
like another topic that we should cover off on.
I think so.
There are slides here for it.
Yes,
Yeah.
slide 18
Yeah.
touches,
On page 5.
on page 6, or maybe it's,
Um,
oh yes, it's also
It's
there
got
too. Yeah, so it's twice.
You think of something other than that, or is it that maybe?
No, that's good, and then just, and they would like some sort of an update quarterly or something about the projects that are coming through, because we got some pretty cool projects that have come forward, and it's going to be at least a year, I think, before anything really gets out there, but they want to be kept, updated on what's happening out there.
So, and is the mechanism for updating them? I'm sure I'm following exactly. So in the course of this meeting that we do annually, we'll obviously talk through, hey, here's what's been happening, here's what's going well, here's some stuff we need to work on, some progress we've made. When you say an update quarterly, an update to council?
Like a spreadsheet to council about each of the projects that are going on. But this is a good way to start it now and show them the highlights of some of the projects that have come through to really get them going, and then some sort of an update down the line. Whether that be quarterly, semi-annually, something that...
Something more frequently than annually?
Yeah, okay. I think so. Maybe semi-annually, just to keep them in the loop of what's happening.
What are you guys doing just as a matter of course in terms of, you're keeping track of this stuff anyway? If it's just an action item to say, okay, here's something that goes to council, is there something that's a written communication then, or something that you do in a meeting?
Usually it would be if staff, or if council requests a staff report, an informational staff report, that's how that information would be delivered to them. The other thing is that because the ordinance has now been in effect for almost 18 months, we did let council know that we would come back and update them in between 18 months and 2 years to let them know what the funding stream looks like and how the approvals processes are going. So we will be giving them a more in-depth update this fall.
Okay. All right.
That might be a good
so we should call that out, and it's coming in the fall.
And a good way to kind of kick that off for them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
All right. And I'd like to do the master plan part.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's a big one.
So let's see here. So how actually does this work, Ellie? So we'll come in and we're all kind of can you just sort of go through the mechanics of how we're doing this? We're starting an hour early, right? Starting at 6? I
would be glad to. So they actually scheduled a series of these study sessions together because they were having trouble being able to have them at their normal time, which is usually 6 o'clock prior to their 7 o'clock council meeting.
Okay.
That's why we had several date changes, and then eventually they decided to hold them next Wednesday, and they've stacked up several boards and commissions. Our meeting is at 8 p.m. So we are, I believe, between 2 other joint study sessions. So it will be 1 hour, and we will be pretty much capped there. Generally what happens is the commission and the council are all seated together. The commission takes about 20 minutes to do the presentation, right?
This is a lot of material for 20 minutes.
It is a lot of material for 20 minutes. And so it ends up being sort of, quick talking points, and in the PowerPoint, in the Dropbox, there are some basic notes in there, but whatever sections you all sign up for, of course, I will schedule time with you all on Tuesday and Wednesday to talk through that if you need some help. But generally, the commission presents for about 20 minutes, and then it leaves lots of time for discussion and council questions. So, you've got a sense of some of council's questions during the interview process, things that are of interest to them right now, and they may want more in-depth information. But the idea is that you give them a good broad spectrum, and then if they want to drill down and ask more about the master plan or about the University Avenue tunnels, they have the opportunity to have that discussion.
Okay. So for some of the things where, I'm assuming that, they're all familiar with the stuff that went into Mitchell Park, so that's something we wouldn't spend a ton of time. In looking at a given piece, say, here's a Bruce Beasley, do they don't want to be walked through?
It's really helpful. I think those are probably kind of rapid fire. It's really a great way to just remind them, oh yeah, these are all things that the public art program did.
Okay. And then we can say an event was held this day, that kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, you can. The fountain in particular, right, because that was really recent.
Okay.
But I just see that as a pretty quick roll through. And these are at Mitchell Park. Here's the Bruce Beasley. Here's that. Here's the other. It's just a reminder to them. And some of them, like the water quality control plan, they may have no idea that those pieces are there. So it's nice to let them know that we have pieces throughout Palo Alto.
Okay. And it's funny, I think the Decenza was the only temporary one that we did this year?
That's the only one that was installed since we met with them jointly last year.
Okay.
Are we going to get questions about Aurora?
Quite possibly during the interview process, there were several questions about Aurora. So it very well may come up.
And what sorts of things are top of mind with respect to Aurora? Like, are we going to revisit the? I mean, I think we landed at a good place in terms of saying, okay, temporary art is 1 year with a possible 3 months extension. Is it possible to reopen that, or not so much?
Well, we did do a call for temporary public art that's existing, and so staff is coming back to the commission at the next meeting with some alternatives and recommendations for temporary public art over the next 2 years.
Okay, no, what I meant more was sorry, I'm unclear. We decided a number of meetings ago to extend for 3 months the period at which Aurora was displayed.
Right.
Is it of interest to the council to maintain the same time frame for public art? So typically it's a year? Or is there an interest in revisiting it?
I think the discussions that they were asking of the interviewees was their opinion of Aurora.
Okay.
And so I think there's some discussion about temporary versus permanent. We are having some performance issues currently with the piece. It's not fully lighting and is going to take some more significant work than what we have been doing to get it fixed. So, so there are some concerns there about how long it can last.
Wasn't it
So
supposed to come down? I thought it was January and then 3 more months. Like it seems like way past
It
this
was.
That's what I would assume is the bigger question. Why is it still up?
Right. Well, because we were working on the plan for what is next, which we were coming back to the commission with. So that's part of the reason we did that public call for artwork, so that.
But you don't want a gap.
And we talked about that.
I thought we were going to have a gap.
Yeah. So there are other powers that be too. So we're trying to be diplomatic, and I think the good news is that everyone wants to see public art on the plaza. You know, and people want to see it activated and want to see it as a destination. So we are being proactive in coming up with a plan for the next couple of years, and so we'll come back to you shortly with that.
Okay, so I think it's helpful to kind of walk through the rest of the presentation so people are familiar with what's there, and then they can express what they're interested in. I think it makes a ton of sense either whenever we decide that you should do the master plan overview. Sorry.
How many new council members are there?
There are 3.
3 new council members, so that's, and it's going to be leading them as well.
Yeah, yep.
And get them informed and trying to get them up to speed, and they may have some questions, so. Just like when we met with the mayor.
No, I'm sure you're right. So for the public art and private development ordinance, so just to recap here, this is helpful. 29 is slated. So how many have actually are installed? What's the of the spectrum of something that is possible, coming, approved? I think we've approved a couple already.
So the chart on
three completed and initial and final reviews.
Right.
Managed by staff. But in terms of which are any done yet?
So if you look at the next slide, on slide 14, 3 have reached their final.
Yeah, okay.
3 have reached their final review. None have been installed as of yet, and it will likely be 2017 before we see the first one installed.
Okay.
Are there images or drawings of these?
The 3 that are approved are the 3 subsequent images. So frequencies, so slide 15 is the rendering of Barbara Gray-Gudis' piece for 1050 Page Mill. Tabula by Charles Yadikin, who is the same artist who did Aurora, and his project. And then Approach by Daniel Wintrick, who came to the commission last month. So those are the 3 that have been approved thus far.
It's like a 4-year-old. So you're going to tell us what's coming now? Oh, here, what is this? Sorry, I'm just didn't really exactly what's there. These are all awesome pieces. You're going to be really excited. I think I'm wondering if there's like a leave behind or like an email to send to folks in advance or after the meeting, because some of the things we went through, like just to have one thing where you could go see some of Barbara Gagudis' works, and these are all really cool artists and cool projects that have been picked. And I think that would maybe be helpful in addition to the presentation, and I'm happy to go dig it out, or what do you...
Just the links to their webpages?
Yeah, well, the links to things that are, yeah, the links for the things that are about to go in.
Oh, of images of everything that's about to go in?
Well, no, I'm sorry. So when I went to go check out Barbara Gagudis' website, I mean, like, sure, she has an incredible site. There's lots of interesting art there. It's just interesting context for someone to see, like, well, why did you pick this artist? And we're not going to have the time to go into great detail. Oh, well, here's why we picked this one and that one, but just so they can go and explore themselves. If they're not going to take the time themselves to just go do a web search, it may be handy to just have it all right there for them.
Okay. So just having links, okay.
I have a question. Do you have a matrix of the 29 projects? Just not necessarily to get into the weeds with council during our joint session, but to have as reference background of all the projects you've identified? I mean, I know we're looking at the 9 in particular that are really tangible, but
Right, because those are the ones that will come to the commission.
right. But is it possible to find out just sort of when we're thinking about the ordinance in general and its
Right.
how it's being utilized and its success, is it possible over time to get a matrix of
A listing of all the
Yeah.
projects?
yeah?
Yeah, we could work on a version of that. Many of the projects have not yet identified which way they want to go.
Okay.
Or whether they would just contribute to a fund or develop the project. Yeah. Inside. All right.
And I did have a question, but sorry to go back to Aurora, but so you mentioned that it's having some technical issues. Are any of those safety issues, or is it just electrical in terms of turning on?
It's difficult to know. It was intended to stay here. So it hasn't been evaluated closely since it was installed. So at this point, what we know of is an electrical issue. We are making other plans, so it will probably be a few months before we have something approved and ready to install and make that transition. So I don't anticipate that it will necessarily stay far beyond that.
It's not like a structural lifespan.
I'm not aware of any structural issues with it. It is a very sturdy piece, but it hasn't been closely examined since it was installed.
Okay.
Is the associated maintenance expense fall to the city, or does it fall to who's paying for the inspection and the repairs that need to be done? Is that coming out of our...
The artist has been
The artist,
taking
yeah.
care of that as part of the agreement.
Okay.
And the piece that's going in City Hall, I think we need to spend a minute or two on that and really kind of highlight that. Because when you walk in, you're going to see that. It's about, I don't know, when is it going to be unveiled?
Well, the monitors will be going live shortly and streaming city content before the artwork is ready to install. So Nardulli's piece will go in late summer and it will go live.
Okay. But when you say the city data will be streaming, will that be visible? Will those panels come down and people will be able to see what's there?
The panels are down.
Oh, okay.
So you can see the wall and the monitors right now, but it's not up and running yet.
Okay, well, we should explain that, what you're going to see when you first walk in is city data and all that other stuff, and then late summer is when the artwork really is going to be installed. Because that's, like I said, when you walk in, it's the first thing you're going to see. And I'm sure there'll be some questions about that.
Good point.
The first day will be interesting because when you very first turn it on, there won't actually be any content. It'll sort of phase in. I don't know if it'll be, let's say the very first thing goes up and someone takes a picture or whatever, and it's the first one. So if it will like sort of stream itself in, and it'll be a mix, or they'll wait until they have enough so that all art is displayed?
No, so it's going to be preloaded with a lot of images already. So they've already collected a lot of images, photographed a lot in Palo Alto, And also keep in mind that it's also feeding from news streams, so it's always live, it will always be populated,
Okay.
even from day one.
All right.
And when is the art piece on the top going to go in?
When is that being reinstalled?
So we are just waiting for the confirmation regarding the timeline for the painting job, because both walls and the ceiling and in the lobby are being painted. Once we have the green light,
Okay.
we're ready to send
Yeah, you don't want, yeah, okay.
So I expect it to happen pretty soon.
All right.
Yeah.
So, Sheriff McDowell, I'm assuming you're going to do the introduction.
Sure. Well, actually, now that folks have kind of seen things, what are people interested in?
Maybe a vacation,
You're on vacation, okay, so no.
like 3 weeks. But I'm probably going to leave in a few minutes because I'm making the train too, now that I came out with a Palo Alto. The train runs every hour.
Okay.
Amanda's not here, let's give her everything.
Well, she already took two.
So Amanda slides
She's not here to
20,
protect herself.
she slides 20 and 21,
Yeah.
and then,
I would be happy to do brilliance and then writing the prints. Unless anybody is dying to have those. Or I could take on all the library volumes.
It might make sense for consistency for one person to go through all of the installation, all
Yeah.
those together.
And being like, my thought was like the libraries maybe, and then the installations, and then, because they're all kind of,
Because it's sort of rapid fire and,
yeah,
okay.
so
So you'll do through Confluence?
4 through 11.
4 through, wait, yeah. Sure, that's fine, yeah.
Great.
Because the libraries are going to kind of all be compacted. So, yeah, that's fine.
All right, so then we have, maybe the next chunk is the temporary and private art and public art and private development ordinance. And let's see, what's another chunk? The municipal, so we really have, what do we have here? What about one of you guys? Do you want to do the public art and private development?
I could if I had time with during the week to just get another sort of tutorial on it.
Sure,
That'd
of
be
course.
great.
Which one is that?
So 13, 14. I mean, I could touch them, so rapid fire on 15, 16, 17 then as examples of that.
Right.
Yeah, those are the three that are
They're
approved.
coming.
Yeah.
And I guess 18 as well for changes.
Right,
to
because it ties in.
Okay, so 13 through 18.
Okay, great.
Well, I'll get an education on it. I will get to know them very quickly.
Both come at a good time.
One thing you may want to mention on that is that Lisa's now full-time because of this ordinance. We do have a full-time public art director now.
I had a recommendation for 19, not that I'll be here, and I know there's lots of slides, but I think it would be nice to show all of them and doing it rapid fire. I really like the Aaron Tool stuff.
The accessions, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah.
in the collection one, number
Yeah.
18. Just because you could say all those things and just quickly flip through the same amount of time, but for them to see the different pieces.
Okay, I would have to check about amending it because the packets have all
Oh,
gone.
can't change
It's
it.
all,
Okay.
packets
Okay,
have already
we're
gone
gonna,
out to
we're gonna
council.
take that off.
So there will be no more visuals on this collection slide then?
Would it make sense for Amanda to do the three over here, 19, 20, and 21?
Sure.
And all tie together?
All right, so we have, so if I do an intro, and then we go to Nia for the new pieces through, do we say including the temporary installations, or do we?
We need someone.
Probably also do the temporary.
Yeah, once you also do the temporary, so we're gonna have like one just hang out.
Sure.
And then Mila, you're gonna do the public art and private development ordinance. So through, and then I guess so it's a question of like, should we do the updated municipal ordinance? I mean, there's just a few, that's not a huge thing to get into. I imagine there'll be questions about it, but I'd rather just have, I don't know, or if Lauren, if you want to do like the municipal ordinance and the accessions, and then Amanda do the last two, or we have Amanda do the whole last chunk starting with the municipal ordinance.
I'm happy to jump in with the updated municipal ordinance.
Okay. Well, why don't
And
we-
the collection if you'd like, however you think it makes sense.
Let's do that. I think it's that makes a lot of sense.
That helps me.
Okay.
Okay.
And then Ben, you have the update on the master plan, and you want to cover ongoing projects. Okay. All right. Great.
One thing that did come up in a meeting yesterday with Jim Heen, he did mention a desire to set the stage, and perhaps it makes sense in the introduction.
Yeah.
Just big picture, why is public art important in a city like Palo Alto? Really just, sort of set that broad stage that it's not about just individual projects, but something much larger.
Mm-hmm. He'd like us to do that, or he'd like to do that himself?
No, he was requesting that the commission
Okay,
sort of
okay.
kick
All right.
it off with this, in that framework.
So why don't I do that? So I'll put together some bullet points for the introduction. I'll shoot them over to you guys, and we'll make sure that we don't dive too quickly into the weeds and lift our heads to see the grander vision of art and how it improves our lives and raises our spirits. All right, so I think that pretty much covers it. So any other thoughts here?
Where is it going to be held at?
It's in Chambers, right?
Is it Chambers this year?
It is
Okay.
in Chambers.
And is it at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock?
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
It changed back to 8 now?
Yes, they pushed the meeting a little down. It's going to take 1 hour from 8 to 9.
It's gonna be fun.
Generally, it's a fun meeting.
Yeah.
It's interesting to hear what's on the council members' minds. And especially for the newer council members who are not as well acquainted with the public art program, it's great for them to get a better sense of the commissioners and all of the things that you all are tracking and shepherding through these processes. So it's a great opportunity to really show off everything that you do.
I have an unrelated question. So I think we'll close on this item.
I believe so.
All right. Any announcements?
We were going to do a little check-in on calendars.
The one thing I don't see on here, which is a change to the date of the boot camp. We moved it. What's the
June 23rd.
June 23rd.
June 23rd.
Okay. So if
And
you're
also the next public art master plan meeting too.
and that's the time of day for that one is.
We're looking at 9 to noon. We shortened it, did it in the morning. That was the feedback we got trying to do it on a Saturday.
Yeah.
That this was going to work better for most
Okay.
people. Just a brief check-in. The next meeting is June 18th, is that right? Who all is going to be in town on June 18th and could be?
Here.
Okay.
You better be here.
Okay, so we do have a quorum of 4 who would be here on the 19th.
Yeah, raise your hands if you're here on the.
Say 18th?
Or the 18th? Okay.
All right. I'm not going to be here for the boot camp, which I'm disappointed about, but I understand. It's a better time for that. All right.
And then the other quick question I had was, I've been in touch with one of my colleagues who works at the Anderson Collection, their offices, and she's offered, we've done this every couple of years, where we take the commission into a tour of their offices, and sometimes get to meet Hunk and see what all they have.
At the house or at the?
No, their offices up on
At
St.
Stanford.
No, not
It's
Stanford.
in Quadras.
Their offices up at Quadras.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is. Okay.
Quadras is it's like Sand Hill and near Slack.
Okay.
And so they said the best days to do it are usually Thursdays from 1 to 5.
Let's do it. I met him, and he's really fun.
He's great. What kind of time frame though?
What's easiest for, I don't know, lunchtime? The food
We
at
did it more
Quadras-
like the 1 o'clock.
If they give us lunch, the food at Quadras is very good.
They don't feed us.
Not yet.
Yeah.
Um,
Are you thinking June, July, August, or are you thinking further out?
We could do June or July is probably easier.
I'd rather do July.
July.
Are you guys ready?
You give us enough heads up.
Few weeks, middle 2 weeks. And we can-
Okay, so I'll get a couple potential
Yeah.
dates and send them out to the
Yeah.
group. I'll get a couple potential dates and
Awesome.
send them out to the
That's
group.
great. Thank you for offering.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Sometimes I like to find fun outings for the commissioners.
All right, so I think that we are almost.
Are we ready?
Yes. Okay, we are adjourned.
Wow, thank you.
Right.
Elise?